During dinner, he hit his pregnant wife in the stomach in front of all the guests, but he didn't account for one thing she was prepared for. Hello! Before we begin, write in the comments where you are watching from, whether you've subscribed to the channel and liked the video. We wish you pleasant listening. The crystal chandelier dimly illuminated the set table in the spacious dining room of Maxim's parents' country house. Anna was arranging bowls of salad, careful not to accidentally bump the vintage heirloom crystal, her mother-in-law, Mrs. Valentina's pride and joy. The large oak table was covered with a snow-white tablecloth, its edges adorned with exquisite embroidery, her grandmother's handiwork. The celebratory dinner for her father-in-law's 65th birthday, Mr. Fletcher, was supposed to be flawless. Focused on setting the table, Anna didn't immediately notice Maxim appearing behind her. His heavy hand landed on her shoulder, and she flinched involuntarily. "What's taking you so long?" he hissed through gritted teeth, a smile plastered on his lips. "The guests are already arriving." A smile for outsiders and cold steel in his voice for her. A familiar combination. Anna instinctively put a hand on her rounded belly, as if protecting her unborn child from an invisible threat. 5 months pregnant was already a noticeable term, but she had worn a loose, muted blue dress anyway, trying not to attract extra attention. "I'm almost finished," she replied quietly, avoiding his gaze. "You'd better be," Maxim added, barely audibly, and beaming, headed to the hallway, where the voices of the first guests could already be heard. From the outside, their family seemed ideal. Successful businessman Maxim, son of a respected factory director, his beautiful wife, an elementary school teacher, their expected firstborn, a house of plenty. But behind their apartment door, a completely different story unfolded. A story Anna had been silent about for almost 7 years of their marriage. The guests arrived one after another. Maxim's colleagues with their wives, neighbors from the suburban community, family friends dating back to the old days. Mrs. Valentina, a former high-ranking official used to being in control, greeted everyone with polished phrases. It seemed to Anna that her mother-in-law recited learned greetings like she once read reports at party meetings. "Anne, dear," Hazel Fisher, their neighbor from the community, and her mother-in-law's longtime friend, approached her. "How are you feeling? Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?" "A boy," Anna replied, grateful for the attention. "The doctor said everything is fine." "Well, thank goodness," the woman crossed herself, though in her younger days she had been a staunch atheist. Times had changed, and so had people. "I was just thinking you look a bit pale. You need to rest more. This summer, get some fresh air at the community. Grow your own cucumbers. I remember when I was in your condition, I grew seedlings on my windowsill. It made my soul so happy." Anna nodded, smiled, kept up the conversation, all while watching her husband, who was already pouring brandy for the male guests in the corner of the room. She noticed how quickly Maxim's first glass emptied, followed by his second. With every toast to the birthday boy, the tension inside her grew. Alcohol and Maxim were a combination she feared most. "Please, to the table," Mr. Fletcher announced solemnly, and the guests began to take their seats. Anna found herself seated between her mother-in-law and the wife of one of Maxim's colleagues. Her husband sat directly across, allowing him to control her every move. that familiar heavy gaze that made her go cold inside. Since the pregnancy began, Maxim had seemed to restrain himself, but Anna always felt it was only a matter of time. The table groaned under the weight of traditional dishes, a version of potato salad, herring salad, jellied tongue, deviled eggs, everything Mr. Fletcher loved, reminiscent of the feasts of a bygone era. Mrs. Valentina was proud of her culinary skills and never missed a chance to show them off to her guests. "Remember the lines for red caviar back then?" One of the older guests began reminiscing, heaping a full spoon of the delicacy onto his plate. "And now, please, take as much as you want. Just pay the money." "But the quality of everything was different then," Mrs. Valentina chimed in. "And people were different, and the relationships between them." "That's right," Mr. Fletcher supported. "Now it's all about money, money, money. Back then, human relationships were valued." Anna listened silently to the conversations about a past these people recalled with nostalgia. Maxim, however, rolled his eyes in irritation. Such talk always angered him. He belonged to the new generation of businessmen who made their fortune in the tumultuous transition years, and considered nostalgia for the past a sign of weakness. "Let's not talk politics," he interjected, raising his glass. "Today, we are celebrating my father's birthday, not holding a political briefing." Anna noticed the corner of her mother-in-law's mouth twitch, a clear sign of displeasure at her son's remark. But Mrs. Valentina remained silent. Everyone here knew Maxim's character and tried not to contradict him. The toasts followed one after another. Mr. Fletcher was congratulated on his anniversary, wished health, long life, and to live to see his great-grandchildren. At these words, the guests' glances turned to Anna, and she lowered her eyes, embarrassed by the attention. Under the table, her hand again rested on her stomach. The evening continued. The main course was served: baked goose with apples and braised cabbage, followed by dessert. Mrs. Valentina proudly brought out her famous bird's milk cake, baked from a recipe out of a women's magazine from the 70s. "You can't buy a cake like this anymore," she declared, cutting it into thin slices. "It's all different now, just chemicals. Mine is all natural, like in the old days." The women gathered around the table discussing culinary secrets, while the men moved to the living room to continue drinking and talking business. "Anne, dear, you should keep a pregnancy diary," advised the wife of Maxim's colleague, a mother of 3. "I kept one with all of mine. My Tanya is 25 now, and I still remember everything. The first kick, the first tooth." Anna nodded, mechanically noting to herself that she, too, had once dreamed of keeping such a diary. She wanted to write all her thoughts, feelings, and sensations in a beautiful notebook with a bear on it, which she bought after the ultrasound. But the notebook remained untouched. What could she write when she lived in fear every day? The return of the men from the living room brought a new tension. Maxim had clearly had too much. His eyes shone with a feverish glint. His movements became sharp. He approached his wife and put a hand on her shoulder, a little harder than necessary. "Why are you just sitting there?" he asked loudly. "Serve the guests some cake." Anna stood up, feeling her legs go numb with tension. "I already offered it to everyone who wanted some," she replied quietly. "You didn't offer me any," Maxim smirked, and in that smirk, Anna saw danger. "Some wife Doesn't think about her husband, only about herself. Then he said loudly, with deliberate cheerfulness, addressing the guests. Can you believe? This morning she spent 2 hours in the bathroom. I was late for work because of her. She's pregnant, you see. Needs to pace back and forth. The guests smiled awkwardly, some understandingly, some embarrassed. Now, Maxim, his father gently objected, a woman in her condition needs more time. I had an urgent meeting, Maxim interrupted, raising his voice. And besides, she only thinks about herself since she got pregnant. Anna felt a flush spread across her face. Always the same. Public humiliation. Attempts to make her the guilty one for all troubles. Maxim's usual tactic. Put the salad here, Maxim commanded sharply, pointing to the table. And stop slacking off. This phrase, spoken loudly enough for everyone to hear, made the guests fall silent. An awkward pause hung in the air. Hazel Fisher looked at Anna sympathetically, but immediately averted her eyes. Interfering in family matters was considered improper. Tell us, Anne, how are things at your school? Mr. Fletcher tried to diffuse the situation. What are the kids like these days? I bet they only think about computers. Anna smiled gratefully at her father-in-law. Different kids, Mr. Fletcher. Some are very passionate, creative. Last month, my third graders and I made toys, like in the old skillful hands clubs. Remember those, in the community centers? This topic sparked excitement among the older generation of guests. Memories poured forth about childhood pastimes, homemade crafts, amusement parks with carousels and cotton candy. Anna remembered how she herself attended a soft toy club as a child, where she learned to sew funny animals. Her favorite creation was a plush bear with button eyes. She had kept it to this day, hidden in a box of mementos. She wanted to pass it on to her child. Maxim sat across, growing gloomier. Nostalgic conversations always irritated him. What community center? What clubs? He had often said to his wife. The world has changed. Money is what matters. If you don't hustle, you'll get eaten alive. Anna saw her husband nervously tapping his fingers on the table. Everything inside her clenched. She knew these signs of an approaching storm. And remember the film, Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears? One guest said enthusiastically. Now, that was a picture about real love and family values. Why are you all stuck in the past? Maxim burst out, slamming his glass on the table. Let's talk about the present, about what's happening now, not in your golden age. His voice sounded sharp, challenging. Anna noticed Maxim's parents exchange glances. They knew this trait of their son, his inability to control his emotions. Maxim, calm down, Mr. Fletcher said quietly. We're just reminiscing. Nothing to reminisce about. Maxim raised his voice. It was all shabby and impoverished. And now we have everything only thanks to me, by the way. He gestured around the richly furnished house. Anna lowered her eyes. How often had she heard these words from him? That he supported everyone, that without him they would be nothing. This constant control through money, through financial dependence. She remembered the day she timidly hinted that she would like to return to school after maternity leave. Don't I give you enough money? Maxim had snapped contemptuously. Then he added in a different tone, Who will take care of the child? Your place is at home. That very evening, he broke her porcelain ballerina figurine, a gift from her first students, just swept it off the table during an argument. They had met 9 years ago through mutual friends. Anna taught elementary school. Maxim was just starting his business, something with computers and software. He was 8 years older, confident, with a good sense of humor and ambition. He courted her beautifully: flowers, restaurants, unexpected gifts. Once, he met her after work in a new imported car with a huge plush bear in the passenger seat. Colleagues were envious, girlfriends admired. "Such a man! Grab him before he gets away," advised Catherine, her university friend, by then a successful lawyer. They had a lavish wedding 6 months after they met, with a limousine and doves. It was the era of contrasts. Poverty coexisted with ostentatious wealth. Maxim wanted to show everyone that he had made it, that he was a successful new man, not an engineer with a meager salary like his father. The first year of married life was cloudless. Anna felt like a princess cared for by a strong, reliable man. Their apartment in a new building gradually filled with beautiful things. "Just say the word, whatever you need," Maxim repeated. "I'll do anything for you." She liked his attention, his generosity, but gradually she began to notice Maxim becoming more demanding. First, it was about little things: how she dressed, who she talked to, when she came home from work. "That dress is too revealing," he would frown. "You're my wife, not some—" or "Why are you still friends with that Kate of yours? She's a divorcee. What good can she teach you?" Anna gave in. It seemed to her that this was how a caring husband should behave: worry, protect, guide. The first blow happened a year and 2 months after the wedding. Anna was late from school. A parent-teacher conference ran long. She tried to call Maxim, but his phone was off. When she got home, Maxim was waiting for her in the living room, gloomy as a thundercloud. "Where were you?" he hissed through clenched teeth. "At the parent-teacher conference. I told you this morning." "You're lying!" he shouted, jumping up from his chair. "I saw your conference, sitting in a cafe with some jerk." It was so absurd that Anna was even taken aback. "What are you talking about? What cafe? I was at school. I can give you the parents' numbers. They'll confirm." A slap cut her off mid-sentence, sharp, humiliating, burning. The strong blow threw her against the wall. Taken by surprise, Anna lost her balance and fell to the floor. Her vision darkened. A salty taste of blood filled her mouth, and her cheek burned with fire. "Don't you dare lie to me!" Maxim thundered over her. "Never!" What happened next? Anna remembered vaguely, as if in a fog. Maxim suddenly transformed. The anger disappeared, replaced by remorse. He fell to his knees beside her, his face contorted. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He hugged her, begged for forgiveness, repeating over and over, "Forgive me, my love. I don't know what came over me." He swore it was the first and last time, that he'd sooner cut off his hand than hurt her again. And she forgave him, believed his vows, and even convinced herself that she was partly to blame. She should have reminded him about the conference again, called more persistently, found a way to let him know she was running late. But that was only the first time. Others followed, all according to the same pattern: argument, outburst, violence, Maxim's remorse, reconciliation, a period of calm that Anna mentally called the honeymoon period. And then it all repeated. After the third time, she decided to tell Catherine. Her friend listened in silence, then said firmly, "Leave him. Right now. This won't end. It will only get worse." Anna didn't listen. She believed Maxim would change, that it was all due to work stress, that everyone goes through difficult periods. 6 months later, she tried to leave for her mother's place. She packed her things while Maxim was at work, left a note. But that evening, he rushed to her parents' house, stood under the windows with a bouquet of roses, called every 5 minutes, cried into the phone. Her mother couldn't bear it. "Honey, he's going crazy. Look at him. At least talk to him." Anna went down to the yard. The conversation turned into embraces, into Maxim's vows that everything would change, into his promise to see a psychologist. She returned home, and a week later, in a fit of rage over an incorrectly ironed shirt, he pushed her so hard she hit her head on a cabinet. He never went to the psychologist, said it was all nonsense. Anna learned to live in a state of constant tension. She predicted her husband's mood by the smallest signs. How he parked the car in the garage, how he slammed the front door, how he greeted her when entering the apartment. She saved her strength for the inevitable conflicts and the lulls between them, and she constantly looked for the reason in herself. Maybe she really wasn't a good enough wife? Maybe if she cooked better, kept the house more meticulously, was more attentive to his mood. The pregnancy was a surprise. She and Maxim had long wanted a child, but something always stopped them. Financial difficulties, apartment renovations, problems at Maxim's work. He met the news with delight, hugged her, spun her around the room, called his parents. "Can you imagine? I'm going to be a father. My son. My heir." In the first months of pregnancy, he was unusually attentive and caring, brought her strawberries in the middle of winter, didn't allow her to lift heavy things, made sure she took her vitamins on time. It seemed to Anna that this was a turning point in their relationship. The future child had changed something in Maxim, awakened real feelings in him. But gradually everything returned to normal. Irritation, nitpicking, control. Though he avoided physical violence, at least he didn't hit her stomach, as if something held him back from that final line. "You've gotten fat," he'd throw out, watching her get dressed. "My mother stayed slim right up until the end." Or, "Why are you always whining?" Pregnancy isn't an illness. My grandmother worked in the fields right up to giving birth. "Anne, dear." Mrs. Valentina's call brought her back to the reality of the celebratory dinner. "Bring the cake from the refrigerator. Mr. Fletcher will blow out the candles." Anna rose from the table, feeling her husband's heavy gaze upon her. He was quite drunk, and that frightened her. In the kitchen, she leaned against the refrigerator for a moment, closing her eyes. In her dress pocket was a phone with Catherine's number pre-dialed. One call, and it could all end today. Or maybe not. Anna took the cake out of the refrigerator, a 3-tiered bird's milk with chocolate glaze. Her mother-in-law had spent several hours that morning preparing it, carefully arranging the candles in the shape of the number 65. In the reflection of the chrome refrigerator door, Anna saw her pale face and smiled wryly. How often had she stood like this, in this very kitchen, hiding from another of Maxim's outbursts, waiting out the storm. Quiet footsteps behind her made her start. The bulky figure of Mr. Fletcher appeared in the doorway. "Need help, Anne?" he asked quietly. "Thank you. I can manage." She tried to smile. Her father-in-law looked at her carefully, then said in a half-whisper, "You must forgive Maxime. Had a bit too much. He's a good guy, just—" Mr. Fletcher hesitated, searching for words. "He has a difficult character. Takes after me." Anna didn't answer, just gripped the cake plate tighter. She had long understood that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Overheard conversations between her mother-in-law and her friends. Hints, casual phrases, everything indicated that Mrs. Valentina had also once endured her husband's violence. Times were different, her mother-in-law had once said, catching Anna with a black eye she hadn't had time to cover with foundation. "A woman must preserve the family. You quarreled. You'll make up." Anna was returning to the dining room, carefully carrying the cake, when she heard the end of Maxime's phrase. "And my beloved wife only complains about her health. Pregnancy is no reason to slack off on household duties." This phrase, spoken loudly enough for all to hear, made the guests fall silent. An awkward pause hung. Hazel Fisher looked at Anna sympathetically, but immediately averted her eyes. Intervening in family matters was considered improper. "Tell us, Anne, how are things at your school?" Mr. Fletcher tried to diffuse the situation. "What are the kids like these days? I bet they only think about computers." Anna smiled gratefully at her father-in-law. "Different kids, Mr. Fletcher. Some are very passionate, creative. Last month, my third graders and I made toys, like in the old Skillful Hands clubs. Remember those, in the community centers?" This topic sparked excitement among the older generation of guests. Memories poured forth about childhood pastimes, homemade crafts, amusement parks with carousels and cotton candy. Anna remembered how she herself attended a soft toy club as a child, where she learned to sew funny animals. Her favorite creation was a plush bear with button eyes. She had kept it to this day, hidden in a box of mementos. She wanted to pass it on to her child. Maxime sat across, growing gloomier. Nostalgic conversations always irritated him. What community center? What clubs? He had often said to his wife. The world has changed. Money is what matters. If you don't hustle, you'll get eaten alive. Anna saw her husband nervously tapping his fingers on the table. Everything inside her clenched. She knew these signs of an approaching storm. "And remember the film Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears?" one guest said enthusiastically. Now that was a picture about real love and family values. "Why are you all stuck in the past?" Maxime burst out, slamming his glass on the table. "Let's talk about the present, about what's happening now, not in your golden age." His voice sounded sharp, challenging. Anna noticed Maxime's parents exchange glances. They knew this trait of their son, his inability to control his emotions. "Maxime, calm down," Mr. Fletcher said quietly. "We're just reminiscing." "Nothing to reminisce about." Maxime raised his voice. "It was all shabby and impoverished. And now we have everything only thanks to me, by the way." He gestured around the richly furnished house. Anna lowered her eyes. How often had she heard these words from him? That he supported everyone. That without him, they would be nothing. This constant control through money, through financial dependence. She remembered the day she timidly hinted that she would like to return to school after maternity leave. "Don't I give you enough money?" Maxime had snapped contemptuously. Then he added in a different tone, "Who will take care of the child? Your place is at home." That very evening, He broke her porcelain ballerina figurine, a gift from her first students, just swept it off the table during an argument. "Let's sing," suggested one of the older guests, seeing the atmosphere at the table grow increasingly tense. "Mr. Fletcher, remember how we used to sing at holidays?" The host readily agreed. "Of course. I Love You Life was my favorite." He began singing in a deep baritone, and other guests joined in. Anna mechanically moved her lips, pretending to sing, but anxiety grew inside her. Maxime grew darker with each passing minute. He hated it when his father started singing, considered it a manifestation of being old-fashioned and having bad taste. After the song, Mr. Fletcher proposed a toast. "Let's drink to our youth, to Maxim and Anna, to their future son, to the continuation of the family line." The guests supported the toast, all except Maxime, who demonstratively set his glass aside. "Something wrong, son?" asked Mr. Fletcher. "Everything's wrong," Maxim snorted. "I'm just not sure it's even my child." An icy wave seemed to roll through the room. The guests froze with raised glasses. Mrs. Valentina turned pale. "Maxime," his father admonished him, "apologize to your wife immediately." "Apologize? For the truth?" Maxim spread his hands. "Why don't you ask her where she disappears to on Tuesdays and Thursdays? To what kind of courses for expectant mothers, huh?" Anna felt her fingertips go numb. Had he been following her? Did he find out about the support group? "I was at the doctor's," she replied quietly, "and to childbirth preparation classes. I have the paperwork." "Paperwork?" Maxime interrupted, jumping up from the table. "She has paperwork for everything. She'll wriggle out, as always." He was completely drunk now. Red face, gleaming eyes, sharp movements. Anna knew these signs all too well. The evening was heading towards an inevitable climax. "Maxime," his father tried to calm him, "sit down. Drink some water. You've had too much." "Don't tell me what to do," Maxime barked. "I'm sick of it. You and Mother have been ordering me around all my life, and now this one." He nodded towards Anna. "Flaunting her belly like it's a precious burden. Decided to get out of housework, did you? Gonna lounge around on sick leave now?" "Maxime, honey," Mrs. Valentina tried to intervene. "The guests—" "I don't give a damn about the guests," Maxime yelled, knocking over his chair. "This is my house, and my wife, and I'll decide what to do with her." He lunged towards Anna, grabbed her shoulder, and jerked her sharply, forcing her to stand. "Let's go. We need to talk," he hissed in her face. Anna knew what this talk meant. The same as always. A beating in the upstairs room. Then apologies. Then reconciliation. A circle it seemed there was no escape from. But today, something was different. All these months of preparation, all the conversations with the women from the support group, all the plans and hopes, it gave her strength. Strength she hadn't had before. "Let go of me," she said firmly. "You're drunk. You need to calm down." "Don't tell me what to do!" Maxime roared and shoved her hard. Anna flew back against the wall, hitting her back painfully. The guests jumped up from their seats. Mr. Fletcher jerked forward, but Maxime was already advancing on his wife, clenching his fists. "You'll learn not to contradict your husband now." Anna covered her stomach with her hands, an instinctive protective gesture. Only one thought hammered in her head. Not the baby. Not the baby. Maxim stopped in front of her. Fury raged in his eyes. He slowly raised his hand and struck his wife across the face, hard, backhanded. Anna felt the salty taste of blood in her mouth. One of the women gasped. Mr. Fletcher lunged forward, but Mrs. Valentina held him back by the arm. "Don't interfere," she hissed. "This is their business." These words seemed to give Maxim confidence. He stepped even closer and said threateningly, "You're deliberately shaming me in front of my father. You've always done that. You set up this pregnancy, too, to tie me down. You think I don't know about your affairs?" "I never cheated on you," Anna said quietly, looking him straight in the eye. "Liar!" Maxim roared and punched her in the stomach. Pain pierced her entire body. Her vision darkened. Anna doubled over, clutching her stomach, and slowly sank to the floor. The guests froze in horror. One of the women screamed. The men exchanged glances, but no one moved. Their faces showed a mixture of shock and confusion, but no one dared to intervene. Maxim stood over her, breathing heavily, looking down at her with a contemptuous expression. "Get up," he commanded. "Enough of this drama." Anna slowly raised her head. A strange smile played on her lips, calm, almost detached. She looked at her husband for a long moment and said clearly, for all to hear, "That's it." She took the phone from her pocket and pressed the call button, the only button needed right now. Maxim stared at her in bewilderment. "What are you doing? Who are you calling?" "Someone who will help me leave you forever," Anna replied calmly. The morning was gray and damp. Rain drummed against the windows of the country house, creating an anxious, monotonous backdrop. Anna sat in the guest bedroom with a cup of cold tea. She had returned from the hospital just 3 hours ago. The doctors had insisted on an examination and observation. Fortunately, the baby was fine. "The little one is strong," the midwife had said, studying the ultrasound data. "A fighter, like his mom." The door opened quietly, and Catherine peeked in, looking drawn after a sleepless night, but collected and determined as always. "Everything's ready," she said, sitting down next to Anna. "The police will be here in half an hour. I filed a report on your behalf, backed it up with all the evidence we collected. Medical reports, audio recordings, witness statements." "Witnesses?" Anna smiled weakly. "Hazel Fisher. And that young doctor, the neighbor from a few houses down. Doctors are generally more responsive in these matters." Catherine's phone rang. She answered quickly, then turned to Anna. "Maxim is at the police station. They detained him this morning when he was returning home. Apparently, he spent the night at a friend's place." "What is he saying?" "The same thing they always say, that he didn't touch you, that you made it all up, that it's a conspiracy against him." Anna gave a wry smile. Typical Maxim, even now incapable of admitting guilt. Catherine squeezed her hand. "He won't touch you again. We'll get a restraining order and a real sentence." "They won't put him in jail." Anna shook her head. "Domestic violence rarely ends in prison. You told me that yourself." "We have ironclad evidence and witnesses, and most importantly, it happened in front of everyone, publicly. That matters." Someone knocked on the door. Mrs. Valentina stood on the threshold, pale, her eyes red from crying. She involuntarily recoiled when she saw Catherine. "Can I talk to you?" she addressed Anna. "Alone." Catherine looked questioningly at her friend. Anna nodded. "It's all right. I can handle it." Waiting for the door to close behind Catherine, Mrs. Valentina sat on the edge of an armchair. She was still wearing the same elegant suit from yesterday, as if she hadn't changed after the ill-fated dinner. "Anne," she began and faltered. "Anne, dear, are you really going to report Maxim to the police?" "The report has already been filed," Anna replied calmly. "But this is... Her mother-in-law helplessly threw up her hands. "This is your husband, the father of your child. You're a family." "A family isn't fists and bruises. A family is love and respect. Maxim and I never had that." "Don't say that," Mrs. Valentina protested. "He loves you. He just has a temper, like his father. He just needs a little more patience." Was 7 years of patience not enough? Anna shook her head. "Mrs. Valentina, enough. This isn't the first time he's hit me. You know it yourself." "But everything can be fixed," her mother-in-law persisted. "We have connections, acquaintances. We can sort everything out with the police if you withdraw the report. Maxime will go to a psychologist. I promise. He'll change." "No," Anna said firmly. "This is the end. I will not return to him. You'll ruin his life." Tears rolled down Mrs. Valentina's cheeks. His career, his reputation, everything he built over the years. "And what about my life?" Anna asked quietly. "And my child's life? Are they worthless?" Her mother-in-law averted her eyes, then dabbed her tears with a handkerchief, and said in a different tone, businesslike, almost official, "Fine. I see you've made up your mind. But think about the child. He needs a father. Better no father than one like that." "The child needs good conditions," Mrs. Valentina continued. "Where will you live? On what? Your teacher's salary? It's pennies. And we have a big house, money. We could help with our grandson." Anna looked at her mother-in-law carefully. Did she really think she could be bought off with expensive gifts, like Maxime had done at the beginning of their relationship? "I'll manage on my own," she replied. "And I have a profession I love." "Stubborn," Mrs. Valentina threw up her hands. "Just like your mother. I always told Maxime, don't marry from a teacher's family. They have too much pride and too little money. But he loved you." Anna laughed quietly. "Thank you, Mrs. Valentina. You've helped me a lot just now." "With what?" Her mother-in-law was taken aback. "To affirm my decision. Finally." Maxim sat on a hard bench in the holding cell. His whole body ached. The alcohol from yesterday and the night spent on an uncomfortable sofa at a friend's place were taking their toll. His head throbbed. His mouth was dry. He still didn't fully grasp what was happening. The early morning arrest, the stern faces of the police officers, the handcuffs. It all seemed like a bad dream or someone's cruel joke. "This doesn't just happen," he muttered to himself. "It just doesn't." Fragments of the previous evening came back to him. The celebratory dinner, toasts, his father's old songs, irritation, then a flash of anger, and Anna's frightened face. What had he done? Hit her? Well, yes, he hit her. So what? It wasn't like they hadn't argued before. Big deal. It's just family life with its ups and downs. Maxime didn't understand why this time everything had gone differently. Why hadn't his wife forgiven him As always, why had she called someone? Why was he here, in this stinking cell, and not at home, not at work? And he also didn't understand why none of his friends had come to bail him out. Why hadn't his father come? That same father with his connections and opportunities. Had everyone really turned their backs on him? The sound of the door opening made him look up. An investigator entered the cell, a young guy with tired eyes and a notepad in his hand. "Maxim Alexandrovich? Investigator Sokolov. I have a few questions." "No questions," Maxim snapped. "I demand a lawyer. And call my father immediately." "Your father is aware," the investigator replied calmly. "He refused to come. Your lawyer will be present during the interrogation. For now, I'm just here to explain the situation." "What situation?" "My wife made something up." "Your pregnant wife," the investigator interrupted, "required medical attention yesterday after you struck her in the stomach in front of witnesses. We have statements from at least 3 people confirming this, plus a recording from a voice recorder." "A recording?" Maxim was stunned. "What recording?" "Your wife recorded everything. The incidents." The investigator opened his notepad. "And not just yesterday's. We have recordings dating back 6 months, plus medical reports of beatings from the last 2 years, plus photographs of bruises and abrasions. Your wife documented everything very thoroughly." Maxim felt a cold sweat break out on his back. Anna had been recording their conversations, secretly taking pictures, collecting reports, and all this time he had suspected nothing. "She set me up," he squeezed out. "It's a conspiracy against me. She wants to take the property, the money." "And we have witnesses to yesterday's incident," the investigator continued, ignoring his words. "Your neighbors from the community, colleagues, everyone confirms you struck your pregnant wife in the stomach in front of guests." Maxim fell silent. Thoughts raced through his head. He remembered the strange expression on Anna's face after the blow, her calm voice. That's it. The phone in her hand. She had planned it all. She had been preparing all this time, waiting for the right moment. "And you know what's even more interesting?" The investigator snapped the notepad shut. No one was surprised. Not one person said, "It can't be. That doesn't sound like Maxim." Everyone just nodded and said, "Yes, he's been treating her like that for a long time." These words hit harder than the prospect of arrest. Did everyone really know, see through his mask of a self-confident, successful businessman another Maxim, the one who lost his temper with his wife, who couldn't control his anger, who— A lump rose in his throat. Pictures from childhood surfaced in his memory. His mother with bruises hidden under makeup. His father throwing a plate against the wall. The sounds of nightly arguments. Maybe he had really become the same. Closed this vicious circle. "What am I facing?" he asked hoarsely. "Domestic violence." The investigator shrugged. "From a fine to imprisonment, depending on the classification. Given that the victim is pregnant and there was a risk to the fetus, it's likely Article 116, Part 2. That's up to 5 years. 5 years? Maxim jumped up. For what? For systematic violence against a pregnant woman, the investigator replied sternly. And this is not a family quarrel. It's a crime. It's time you understood that. 3 days after the incident, Anna slowly climbed the stairs to the apartment she had shared with Maxim. Catherine walked beside her, carrying a small suitcase. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" her friend asked, looking anxiously at Anna's pale face. "I can go with you. His parents might be there." Or ... No. Anna shook her head firmly. "I have to do this myself. It's part of my liberation." The apartment met her with an oppressive silence. Everything looked the same as always. The neat hallway, the living room with expensive furniture, the kitchen with marble countertops. A house that had never felt like home. Anna went into the bedroom and opened the closet. She wasn't planning to take much, only the essentials: clothes, documents, a few mementos. Her gaze fell on an old box on the top shelf. Anna took it down and opened the lid. Inside lay a plush bear with button eyes, her homemade toy from childhood. She carefully picked it up, stroking the faded brown fur. This bear had seen her childhood tears when she fell and scraped her knees, when she fought with friends, when she got bad grades. Little childhood troubles that had seemed so significant then. Now it would witness her rebirth. Anna put the bear in her bag and continued packing. Photographs of her parents, her teaching diploma, a few books she particularly loved, a worn volume of Tsvetaeva's poetry, and The Dawns Here Are Quiet, by Boris Vasiliev. Gone with the Wind. The doorbell rang. Anna started and looked into the hallway. Catherine stood at the doorstep with a phone in her hand. "It's Hazel Fisher," she said. "She wants to talk to you." Anna let the elderly neighbor in. She looked embarrassed, but determined. "I just came from the police, Ann dear," she said. "I gave my statement, everything as it happened." She paused, then added, "You know, I've noticed for a long time that things weren't right with you, but I was afraid to interfere." "Not my business," I thought. Tears welled in her eyes. "Our generation was raised that way. Don't air your dirty laundry in public. Endure it. He hits you means he loves you. That's what my mother said, and it's wrong. I understand that now." Anna hugged the elderly woman. "Thank you for going to the police." "I'm guilty before you," Hazel Fisher sobbed. "I should have earlier. When you walked around with bruises, and we all pretended not to notice." Catherine tactfully went to the kitchen, leaving them to talk. Hazel Fisher took a small packet from her bag. "Here, take this. Seeds of rare flowers from my garden. You love gardening, don't you? I know. Maybe they'll come in handy in your new place." Anna took the packet of seeds and smiled. This simple gift held so much warmth, so much hope for the future. "Everything will be fine for you now," the neighbor said firmly. "For you and the baby. And if you need anything, just say, I'll help." After Hazel Fisher left, Anna finished packing. She and Catherine called a taxi and began carrying out the suitcases and boxes. At the last moment, Anna turned in the doorway, glanced around the apartment. Her prison for the last 7 years. Strangely, she felt no sadness, no regret. Only relief and quiet joy at the anticipation of a new, free life. "Goodbye," she whispered, and closed the door. The trial was set for the end of September, 4 months after the incident. Anna was already in her 7th month of pregnancy. Her rounded belly was impossible to hide even under a loose dress. She sat on the bench in the courtroom, nervously stroking her stomach. The baby inside was kicking especially actively, as if sensing her excitement. Catherine was next to her, collected and confident in her strict business suit. She had become more than just a friend and lawyer, almost a sister, supporting her every difficult moment. On the bench opposite sat Maxime, looking haggard, with stubble, in a rumpled suit. He occasionally threw hunted glances at Anna, in which a mixture of anger and incomprehension could be read. Next to him was a lawyer, a well-groomed man with an expensive briefcase, hired by Maxime's parents. Much had changed in those months. Anna had moved into a small studio apartment, taken maternity leave, and was preparing for the birth of her son. And Maxime? Maxime had lost his job. Business partners didn't want to deal with a man accused of domestic violence. The story had gotten out, despite all his parents' efforts to hush it up. "All rise! The court is in session," the bailiff announced, and the judge entered the room. A middle-aged woman with an attentive gaze. The hearing began. Anna listened as the prosecutor read the charges, as Maxime's lawyer tried to present it all as an ordinary family quarrel and a temporary blackout due to alcohol. Then it was the witnesses' turn. One by one, the guests from that ill-fated dinner testified before the court. Hazel Fisher, her voice trembling with excitement, described how Maxime hit his pregnant wife. The young doctor, a neighbor from the community, gave a professional assessment of the possible consequences of such a blow. A colleague of Maxime's admitted he had long noticed his uncontrollable outbursts of anger. Anna listened to their testimony, and a strange feeling grew inside her. Not gloating, no, rather a quiet surprise that all these people had always seen the truth, but had remained silent, just like she herself had for 7 long years. "The court calls witness Mrs. Valentina Kravtsova," the bailiff announced. Her mother-in-law slowly rose from her seat. She had lost weight, looked haggard, much older than her 63 years. Silence fell in the room. Everyone knew the accused's mother's testimony could be crucial. Mrs. Valentina took the oath and stood before the judge, clutching a handkerchief. "Tell the court what happened on the evening of your husband's anniversary," the judge suggested. Her mother-in-law nodded, then took a deep breath and began to speak slowly, with pauses, as if every word cost her effort. "It was a celebratory dinner for my husband's 65th birthday. Maxime had drunk a lot. He always gets aggressive when he drinks." She threw a guilty glance at her son. He and Anna started arguing. Maxime accused her of infidelity, of being a bad wife. At some point, he hit her, first in the face, then in the stomach. "Mom!" Maxime couldn't contain himself. "What are you saying?" "Quiet in the court," the judge rapped. "Continue, witness." "He hit her," Mrs. Valentina repeated more firmly. "Everyone saw it, and I did. I did nothing, didn't stop him, didn't protect her." Tears streamed down her face. "I should have intervened, but I was used to it, used to turning a blind eye." Sobs shook her body. The judge gave her time to calm down, then asked softly, "Was this the first time your son showed aggression towards his wife?" Mrs. Valentina raised her eyes. "Number I knew. I've known for a long time. I saw the bruises, heard the screams. But I was silent. I thought he'd get over it, settle down, especially when the child was born. I went through it myself with my husband." She uttered the last words so quietly they were barely audible. But they sounded deafeningly loud in the courtroom, the vicious cycle of violence passing from generation to generation. "Thank you, witness," The judge nodded. Does the defense have any questions? Maxim's lawyer slowly shook his head. What could he ask after such an admission? Anna looked at her mother-in-law with an aching feeling of pity. Mrs. Valentina looked so small, so broken. All her life she had played the Iron Lady, a former high-ranking official, the impeccable wife of a factory director. But in reality, she was just a frightened woman who had resigned herself to her fate and taught her son to do the same. Then it was Maxim's turn. He approached the witness stand, adjusted his tie with a nervous gesture, and stared at a point in front of him. Defendant, do you plead guilty? The judge asked. Maxim was silent for a long time, then said in a hoarse voice, I didn't mean to. I was drunk and lost control. I don't remember everything that happened. That is not an answer, the judge remarked sternly. Do you admit to striking your pregnant wife? Another long pause. Maxim glanced at Anna, then at his mother, then at the lawyer. His eyes showed the hopelessness of a cornered man. Yes, he finally squeezed out. I admit it. Do you have anything to add? Maxim clenched his fists. I don't know what came over me. I loved her. Really, I did. I just sometimes got angry, couldn't control myself, like my father. He abruptly fell silent, realizing he had said too much. But it was too late. The shadow of family violence, stretching through generations, again hung in the room like a heavy cloud. The court adjourned for deliberation. Anna sat, looking at her hands, avoiding meeting Maxim's gaze. She didn't feel sorry for him. At least not now. Maybe with time, when the pain dulled, she could find compassion in her heart for a man broken by his own childhood. But now she was only concerned with one thing: to protect her child from repeating this story. The sentence was milder than expected. 2 years probation, community service, a course of psychotherapy, and an anger management program, plus a restraining order prohibiting Maxim from coming within 100 meters of Anna. This is a good result, Catherine whispered to her as they left the courtroom. The main thing is the restraining order. It will protect you. Anna nodded. She felt strangely empty inside. There was no joy of victory, no disappointment at the mildness of the sentence, only deep relief, as if an incredible weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Anna! A familiar voice called out as they descended the courthouse steps. She turned around. Mr. Fletcher stood at the foot of the stairs, leaning on a cane. He had aged noticeably over these months. He was stooped, grayer, thinner. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. "Alone?" Catherine looked questioningly at her friend. Anna nodded slightly. "It's all right. Wait for me in the car." Mr. Fletcher waited until Catherine had moved a sufficient distance away and began to speak quietly, with pauses, as if every word caused him pain. "Anne, dear, I want to ask for your forgiveness." His voice trembled. "I should have stopped Maxim, intervened, but I couldn't. Just like I couldn't his whole life." Anna was silent, looking at this man broken by life. Before her stood not the formidable factory director, but simply an old man crushed by his own mistakes. "I taught him this myself," Mr. Fletcher continued, "by my example. I hit Valia, shouted at her, humiliated her. I thought that's how it should be. The man is in charge. His word is law. That's how we were raised." He sighed heavily and lowered his head. And then I watched Maxim grow up, how he looked at me with admiration, copied every gesture, every word, and I understood I was creating a monster just like myself. But it was too late. Anna felt her heart constrict. 3 generations of men passing down their wounds, their distorted understanding of strength. "I'm not asking you to forgive Maxime," her father-in-law added quietly. "You did the right thing by leaving. I would like to see my grandson someday, if you allow it." Anna looked at him for a long moment. "I'll think about it, Mr. Fletcher. But not now. I need time." He nodded, understanding that even this uncertain answer was more than he deserved. "Thank you," he said, and, hesitating, added, "Take care of yourself and the baby." Anna watched as he slowly walked away, leaning on his cane, hunched, lonely, unhappy. She suddenly felt sorry for him, and for Mrs. Valentina, and even for Maxime. They were all links in one broken chain, victims of their own illusions about what a family should be. But her son would be different. She would do everything to break this vicious cycle. Snow fell in large flakes, covering the small garden plot with a white blanket. Anna stood by the window of her new house, small but cozy, and watched her 18-month-old son Michael, bundled in a warm snowsuit, try to catch snowflakes with his chubby hands. Next to him was Bill Donovan, their neighbor from the community, a retired agronomist who had gladly taken on the role of voluntary grandfather for the boy. "Like this, Michael. Look, what a beautiful snowflake," he said, lifting the toddler so he could reach a snow-laden apple branch. Anna smiled. Over these 2 years, so many good people had appeared in her life, as if fate itself was compensating her for the years of fear and loneliness beside Maxime. Right after the incident, Anna took leave from the school where she taught elementary school. First maternity leave, then parental leave. The money saved for the escape was enough for the first while. Then she started tutoring, giving literacy lessons to children from neighboring houses. And when Michael turned 1, she unexpectedly received an offer from the school principal to run a young gardener club for the lower grades. Part-time with a flexible schedule. It was Hazel Fisher's idea. The elderly neighbor, who had by then become almost family, knew about Anna's love for plants, and once remarked, "You, Ann dear, could teach the kids gardening. You have a talent. Everything you touch blossoms." So work returned to Anna's life, work she loved, and that brought joy, along with a small but stable income. On club days, she left Michael with Hazel Fisher, who adored the toddler and spoiled him like her own grandson. That spring, when Michael turned 1, Anna accidentally found out about the sale of a small plot with a dilapidated house on the outskirts of the gardening community. The price was laughable by real estate market standards. The house needed serious repairs, and the plot had been abandoned for years, overgrown with weeds. Anna decided to buy it, using her last savings and taking out a small loan. Catherine helped quickly process the paperwork without bureaucratic delays. And with the repairs, the neighbors from the community unexpectedly offered to help. Mostly elderly people who remembered the times when such mutual aid was the norm. Over the summer, the house was transformed. The sagging fence was straightened, the roof was repaired, the walls were insulated, and the interior was remodeled. It now had 2 small bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a tiny bathroom. Modest, but clean and functional. And most importantly, it was her own home. A place where no one could order her around, shout at her, or threaten her. The overgrown plot also came to life under Anna's caring hands. She cleared the weeds, made garden beds, planted flowers, and then, remembering the seeds Hazel Fisher had given her, planted several rare varieties of lilies. They bloomed unexpectedly luxuriantly, attracting the attention of all the neighbors. "With your green thumb, you shouldn't be teaching. You should be gardening," Bill Donovan said once, examining her flower garden. "Do you know how much you can earn on rare varieties?" Thus, the idea of a small flower business was born. Now, in winter, seedlings were already growing in the greenhouse on the plot. By spring, they would be strong enough to produce their first buds. Anna turned away from the window and looked at the table where seed catalogs and a business plan draft lay. Catherine had helped her register as a sole proprietor and figure out the taxes. It was a small but promising venture. The neighbors in the community had already signed up for future seedlings, and the school principal had asked her to decorate the schoolyard with flowers for the spring festival. Life was getting better slowly but surely. The fear was gone, and with it, the nightmares and constant anxiety. Anna learned to enjoy the little things: Michael's first teeth, his first steps, his infectious laughter. Once a month, she met with a psychologist from the Center for Victims of Domestic Violence. At first, she didn't want to go. She thought she could handle it herself. But Catherine insisted. And now Anna understood the wisdom of that decision. The psychologist helped her understand herself, get rid of the deeply ingrained guilt, and regain self-respect. And she herself became a volunteer in the support group. Once a week, she went to the center and simply talked with women who found themselves in the same situation she had once been in. She shared her experience, gave hope, showed by her own example that there was always a way out. She tried not to think about Maxim, although news reached her. Catherine kept her finger on the pulse. Her ex-husband had returned to his parents' house, started drinking, then pulled himself together, went through rehab and psychotherapy, and got a job at a friend's company. Not as a manager, as before, but as a simple employee. Anna felt neither hatred nor gloating towards him, only the deep indifference of someone for whom that chapter of life was finally closed. The doorbell made her start. She wasn't expecting visitors, especially in such a snowstorm. Throwing a shawl over her shoulders, Anna went to the door and asked, "Who is it?" "It's me, Katya," came her friend's voice. "Open up! I'm freezing out here." Anna opened the door. Catherine stood on the threshold, covered from head to toe in snow, holding a huge bag and a cake. "What are you doing here in this weather?" Anna asked in amazement, pulling her friend inside. "What do you mean?" Catherine snorted, shaking snow off her hat. "It's exactly 2 years today since that day. Didn't you count?" Anna froze. Exactly. It was exactly 2 years since that fateful anniversary dinner that changed her whole life. How could she have forgotten? Or perhaps it was good that she had forgotten. "Come in. Get comfortable," she fussed. "I'll put the tea on." Catherine settled at the table, looking with pleasure at the neat kitchen. "It's getting better and better here," she remarked, pointing to the new floral curtains. "And you look better, too." Remember what you were like 2 years ago? Anna remembered. A pale, frightened woman with extinguished eyes and a habit of flinching at any sharp sound. A woman who was afraid of her own shadow and considered herself guilty of all troubles. Yes, that was a time, she smiled, setting cups on the table. How is our Svetlana, by the way? Svetlana was one of the women from the support group, a young mother of 2 who had recently left an abusive husband. Great, Catherine poured the tea. Found a job, rented an apartment. The kids are in kindergarten. She's blossomed. Your example helped her a lot, by the way. Anna nodded. Every woman saved was a small personal victory for her. Through the window, she saw Michael and Bill Donovan building a snowman. The toddler laughed, trying to attach a carrot for a nose. Her heart filled with warmth. You know, she said thoughtfully, stirring her tea. I sometimes think about what would have happened if Maxim hadn't hit me in front of everyone that time. If everything had continued as before. Scandals behind closed doors. Beatings that can be hidden under clothes. Humiliations you can't even tell your closest friends about. You would have left anyway, Catherine said firmly, covering her friend's hand with hers. Sooner or later. For your son's sake, if not for your own. You would have found the strength. Probably, Anna nodded. But, strange as it sounds, I'm grateful to fate that it happened exactly like that. That he lost control and snapped in public. That by that time I already had evidence and witnesses gathered. She smiled with a slight bitterness. He didn't account for one thing. That I had already made up my mind and was ready to escape. Catherine raised her cup. To your new life, my friend. And to never again. She didn't need to finish. Anna clinked her cup against her friend's and took a sip. The tea was hot and sweet. Like her new, free life. The snowstorm intensified. On the small garden plot, Bill Donovan, Anna, and Michael were finishing the snowman. The toddler, flushed from the cold and delight, jumped around, demanding to put an old pot on the snow figure's head. Now, Michael, now, Bill Donovan said, carefully adjusting the boy's slipped hat. There. And now, we'll put the bucket on. Anna watched them, and her heart overflowed with tenderness. Her boy was growing up surrounded by love, real, healthy love, without violence and fear. He had many grandfathers and grandmothers, neighbors from the community, elderly teachers from the school, Anna's friends, a whole big family created not by blood ties, but by sincere affection. The ring of her mobile phone made her start. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Hello? She said cautiously. Anna, hello. Mr. Fletcher's voice sounded tired and broken. Sorry to bother you. She was silent, waiting for him to continue. Dot. Her father-in-law hesitated. Valya is very ill. Cancer. The doctors say she doesn't have much time left. Anna gripped the phone tighter. For 2 years, she hadn't communicated with her former mother-in-law, only occasionally receiving news through Catherine. I'm very sorry, she finally said. How can I help? She would like to see her grandson, Mr. Fletcher said quietly. At least once before. He didn't finish the sentence, but everything was clear. Anna looked at Michael, who was now laughing, trying to make a snowball with his little hands. Could she risk his peace? On the other hand, a dying woman was asking for so little. "I'll think about it," she answered honestly, "and I'll call you back." In the evening, after putting Michael to bed, Anna sat by the window for a long time, looking at the snow-covered garden. A desk lamp burned, illuminating bouquets of dried flowers on the walls, her first commercial experience. On the table lay a catalogue of exotic bulbs she was planning to order for spring planting. Mr. Fletcher's call stirred up the past, which she had so diligently left behind. But perhaps it was time not to run from it, but to make peace with it. Not for Maxim or his parents' sake, but for her own and Michael's. Forgiveness is not an excuse for the abuser. It is liberation for the victim. Anna picked up the phone and dialed her father-in-law's number. "Mr. Fletcher, I'll come by tomorrow. With Michael. Not for long." A convulsive sigh was heard in the receiver. "Thank you, Anne dear." The old man's voice trembled. "Thank you." Hanging up, Anna felt a strange relief, as if the last thread connecting her to that terrible period of her life had been released. She went to her son's crib and gently stroked his head. The boy slept peacefully, unaware of what his mother had gone through to give him this safe, love-filled world. And he would never know. She would make sure of that. It was warm and cozy in the small house. Outside the window, snow continued to fall, covering everything with a clean white blanket. Snow under which the earth rests in winter to awaken to new life in the spring, just like she herself had. Once broken, frightened, and now free and strong. Anna placed a hand on her stomach, where a slight movement had been felt for 2 weeks now. This little secret she hadn't revealed to anyone yet. Not to Catherine, not to other friends. A new life, conceived from a short but sincere romance with the gardening instructor she had met at professional courses last fall. The relationship didn't work out. He left to work in another city, and she wasn't ready for a serious attachment. But she decided to keep this gift of fate. Michael would have a brother or sister, and she would have another reason to live a full life, without fear or regrets. Anna went to the window and drew back the curtains. Lights twinkled in the darkness of the neighboring houses. Music was playing somewhere in the distance. One of the neighbors was probably celebrating a birthday. An ordinary, peaceful life she had dreamed of for so long. "Thank you," she whispered, addressing the sky, the stars, fate. Who knows? Thank you for the second chance. And at that moment, as if in response to her words, a quiet "Mama" was heard in the room. Michael had woken up and was now looking at her with sleepy eyes. Anna picked up her son and held him close. "Everything's fine, baby," she whispered. "Everything will be fine. I promise." The boy wrapped his arms around her neck and buried his nose in her shoulder. She felt his warm breath, the beating of his little heart. And in this simple embrace was the whole truth of her new life. A life she had chosen herself and fought for to the end. Outside the window, snow continued to fall, covering the past and leaving a clean slate for the future. If you like the story, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It motivates us to create new interesting stories every day. We apologize for any possible errors in pronunciation and stress. All the best, and be happy.